Good morning, good afternoon, sorry if this is too loud, and good evening if you're listening in the evening. Hello, welcome. This is Frank Howard of the Totally Hooked podcast, and this is episode 2. Welcome. How are you doing? How's everything going? Perfect. Today, we are going to talk about on these notes, I got Transcendental Meditation. It's a wonderful meditation practice that I've been practicing for about 3 years now. So today, 2 years. I've been practicing Transcendental Meditation for 2 years now. Then we're going to talk a little bit about conspiracy theories. We're going to go over a Clash of Clans update. Of course, we're going to talk about the word of the day. We're going to talk briefly about podcasting drunk. Then we're going to talk about Jane Fonda and the New England Patriots, as well as the Seattle Seahawks. So let's get that ukulele music playing. Okay, good morning. Welcome to the Totally Hooked podcast. Today's word of the day, courtesy of Merriam-Webster's dictionary. If you just Google word of the day, this is the first thing that comes up. Today's word is tintinnabulation. 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 Does anybody know what that is? Tintinnabulation is the ringing or sounding of a bell, a jingling or tinkling sound as if of a bell. The tintinnabulation that could be heard throughout the village was from the church on the common announcing morning services. Interesting. I'm not even going to try to use that word in this podcast. It's a lot harder than it looks, believe it or not. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and I'll hear people talking, and then I'll start to complain. I'm going to lower this down a little bit. Like Bill Burr, for example, he'll read a lot in his podcasts, and he'll screw up the reading, and a lot of people give him crap for it. And now here I am. I'm trying to read this stuff, and it's actually harder than it looks, mainly because this is just being shot. Like, this is just live. What you're getting here is just a live feed right now in the moment. If I screw up, if there's anything that messes up, I don't really want to pause or stop playing. I think we just have to kind of roll with the punches. It's almost like a football game or something that you watch live. Anyway, that is what it is. Whew. Okay. So, Transcendental Meditation, that's the first thing that we wanted to talk about. It's really interesting. I've had a lot of terrific experiences. It's helped my creativity. It's one of the few things, I think, that if you just do this one thing, like, so many things in your life will get better. Like, I just noticed that me personally, I just get along with people a little bit easier. I'm going to take this off here. Now I'm just holding the mic and speaking directly into the microphone. Yeah, this is way more comfortable. Hopefully the vocals will work. But for me, Transcendental Meditation was a good way of, it keeps me grounded in the morning. You practice it twice a day for 20 minutes, and it's not like a religion or anything. It's just you repeat a mantra that they give you. You go to a center, and it takes like a week, I think, and each day you practice TM and you get coached through it, and it's a really good thing. If you look online, there's a whole lot of studies, like meta studies, I think, and that's where they take not just studies, but a lot of different studies, and it's the most, as far as I know, of all the meditations out there, it's been the most researched meditation of all of them. And last year, the year before, I think around 2013 or 2014, the American Heart Association came out and talked about the benefits of TM with heart disease. And I think it just starts with the heart. There's so many things, you know, that word consciousness has been used way too much. It's 2015 now. By now, everybody's been reading about consciousness and expanded awareness. But there is something to be said. I think if there's one act or one thing that to do that'll raise consciousness, I think what happens twice a day when you're going into meditation for 20 minutes, I think that there is something about that where you're becoming more conscious. You're developing conscious awareness, and I think that's because, this is just me personally, but when I first started, it was the hardest. The first few minutes, it's like all these thoughts start coming up, like everything, all of the baggage that I had, all the anger. And when you're sitting there, you kind of have to go through it, and you have to keep saying, the mantra, and it develops something inside you, the ability, I think, to handle those emotional thoughts, like all those things that are going on in your head. And for me, they say it's relaxing. I think it is relaxing. But we can't ignore the fact that just sitting down and doing it, that's a lot of work in itself. Like, once I'm done, I don't think I've ever had a meditation session where when I'm out of it, it's like, wow, like that was good. That was worth it. It's never not been worth it. I've never come out of a meditation like less aware of what's going on, less, just a lot of things. For me, it's never been a waste of time. But getting myself to do it, it's not easy. Like, I've been doing it pretty regularly for, like I said, since January 5th, 2013 is when I formally started, but I'd been practicing meditation, all kinds of different meditations, even mantra meditation for years prior to that. But 2013, January 5th was when I formally started my twice a day practice with a guru, if you will, here in the Washington, D.C. area. If anybody's interested and they're in the Washington, D.C. area, there's an Arlington Transcendental Meditation Center that's really good. My guy was Bernie Del Rocio, and him and several other people, the people in Washington, D.C., the Washington, D.C. area who practice TM were kind of fortunate because there's a lot of people that have been practicing TM for many years, and they were part of this study, like in the 90s, I guess, that correlated practicing. If you get large groups of people practicing TM, it kind of like, it's hard to explain, but it creates peace. Like the crime rate actually goes down. So like in the 90s, they had university researchers come in, and they got a lot of meditators, and they discovered that in Washington, D.C., and if you remember in the early 90s, Washington, D.C. was a very crime-ridden, there was a lot of crime in the area. Well, the time period, they statistically proved a correlation between all those people practicing meditation and lowered crime rates. Now, that just, when you first hear that, it's like, that's kind of strange. I can see kind of how it plays itself out, though. This is how I've kind of I've rationalized it both ways. On the one side, there's that esoteric, yeah, like, we have an effect on other people, we have an effect on the universe. And on the other side, here's just what I was thinking, because I think we're all sort of more connected than we think, and just on a logical, scientific way. I don't even know if this is scientific, but just one way I was thinking about it is, let's say you're in the hotel room, you're practicing TM, you see somebody, and while you're there, I've noticed when I meditate more, I just, I smile to people. I used the dog analogy, I think, works. I think a lot of people, when they start practicing TM, they notice that, like animals, if animals used to bark at you in the past, because animals can see very subtle changes in humans. They're very intuitive to like what humans are emotionally thinking. And you'll notice that when I started practicing, like just dogs and children too, you notice like children look at you and they just trust you because you have more of a kind of innocent way of going about things. And so, I don't know, if you got like however many thousands of people in one area doing that, they're going to have an effect. Like, let's say they're staying at a hotel. The people they see at the hotel they're going to have an effect on them. The people that they're talking with, they're going to have an effect on them. They're going to have effect on the researchers that are researching it. They're going to have effect. So I could even see it like that. If you want to be really skeptical, I could even see that being the reason. And if that's the reason, it's still good. It's still valid in my opinion, because what's wrong with practicing something that's going to make you feel better and have a better impact on other people? I mean, that's just, it sounds so obvious, but people are very skeptical of trying anything and changing, and it's understandable. But yeah, anyway, in this area, we're fortunate because that study, which is a huge study that happened, has had there's a lot of people that were part of that study. And I believe my TM instructor was part of that study. So, if you don't get with him, or if like, let's say but there's still, like, you'll go on these retreats. Like last year, it was about 6 months ago, I went on a Transcendental Meditation retreat, and you meet people that were also part of that study. So, and those are people that were around when Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was still alive. I think he died in the mid 2000s, and he was the guy who trained the Beatles on TM and David Lynch. And there's so much information out there on TM. You can go, like, I think it's tm.org, or just Google Transcendental Meditation. But there's so many stars. You'll start, when you start researching it, you get kind of blown away. Like, I was blown away that, like, some of the people that I really like Clint Eastwood. I really enjoy Clint Eastwood's movies. I like his acting, especially as a creative film director. I have a lot of respect for the films he's done. When I see him, he's been practicing TM for like 40 years or something, or longer, 40 plus years. Same thing with like Jerry Seinfeld. Jerry Seinfeld's been practicing TM like all those years. During the Seinfeld years, he was practicing TM. And obviously, I think all the Beatles would practice TM. You notice those are all like really successful creative people. And Martin Scorsese, he practices TM. And these are all just like actors and stuff, but I can imagine there's tons of people in a lot of professions in the business world, as well as I know here in the Washington D.C. area there's a really good community of TMers. I think meditation used to be this kind of really like out there. I think in the 60s, during that LSD era, there was a lot of negativity towards it, but not really negativity, but like, I think things that are just kind of misunderstood. People put it in a box of like, oh, that's just a bunch of tree hugging hippie stuff. But the science has proven time and again the power of the transcendental meditation. There's, I think, maybe, I was told, or I read somewhere, there's like 4 core like brands, I guess, of meditation. There's that like Zen kind, like I'll tell you what TM isn't. TM is not difficult. Like, that was the biggest breakthrough for me. Like, just talking about transcendental meditation. Like, when I first started, everyone was like, I thought it was going to be hard. I thought I had to be like this monk getting this, like, in the Himalayas doing some kind of really intense concentration. And TM is completely opposite from that. Like, it's not intense. It's actually really relaxing. But what's interesting is when you start practicing it more, your concentration actually becomes very powerful and strong. But there's not activity going on. And it's opposite of what the ego tells you. What the ego tells you is what my mind was telling me is, I can't just have peace right now. I have to go to the Himalayas, or I have to do something great. Then I have permission to have peace. And it's like I have to do some secret too. And gosh, transcendental meditation is so simple. A child can do it. And it's one of those things. It's like, we're about to transition into the conspiracy theories, but what a lot of people say in the conspiracy theory world is like, right in front of your eyes, like it's secrets in the front of your eyes, or what do they call that? You know what I'm saying? Like, This is like there was this Jim Carrey YouTube video where he starts talking about the Illuminati, and he's like, it's a secret up front or secret. Gosh, I can't remember the exact term, but it's like, but that's what they do with these conspiracies. It's like it's a conspiracy that everybody can see. And anyway, I don't think this is a conspiracy, but what I'm saying with the TM is that it's just so simple and so profound. Like people can't respect it. And we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast about how things are valued. Things that are free aren't really valued. And, you know, there is a price to be paid for transcendental meditation. And I think it was worth every penny. I paid whatever the going rate was at the time. It's a lot. I'm not going to like bullshit you here. Like transcendental meditation is expensive. It's an expensive upfront cost, but it's a lifetime of you get a lifetime of checking. You can go in there and check, but I'll say within a year, for me personally, the price I paid had already paid itself off. And what I mean by that is almost anybody can start practicing, you know, it's a form of mantra meditation. You can practice some mantra meditation, but for me, when it was a new year, it was 2013, I put the money up for a lot of different reasons. Number one, I supported the cause, but number two, if I put the money down, if I put real money on something, that's going to make me committed. It's like I spent this money. I'm going to stay with this for the rest of my life because me personally, everything I invest my time, my energy, my money into, I personally believe it should come back to me. Like those are investments. Investments need to have a payoff that increase in value. And for me, I was like, I'm going to pay this money, but I just somehow believed, I had the faith that by giving that investment, I was able to get way more out of it. And I was. That year, man, I had a huge breakthrough. I think when you hear these beautiful stories, when people first start practicing meditation, when they first start meditating, they start becoming like a lot more powerful. And this is getting kind of, you know, again, it's esoteric, but you know, this is just me personally and my own personal experiences. Like everybody experiences things different, but I know I became suddenly like a lot more attractive to other people, and people could see it in me. You know, people get deep and they start talking about auras and stuff like that. I don't know if there's like an energy field or anything like that around me or anything like that, but it's just like, maybe when I wasn't taking myself so seriously, maybe when I'm not like so edgy and everything, I become a lot more attractive, and people are just like, they can just unconsciously see it. And when I don't have fear, that was the big thing. I think that was the first, like in the first couple of months when I did it, I wrote a few not articles, I wrote a few comments on Facebook about fearlessness. And I think I did start getting this fearlessness because I didn't identify with everything. I used to actually identify a lot more. I'm not saying I have completely eliminated this, but what I would do is I would identify with something personally. Like I used to think things like, yeah, like a job title or my name or my profession. I'm not sure. I mean, you could see how this plays itself out in so many different ways. Anyway, I created an identity out of those things, and I sort of made myself like, that's who I was. Like, I am those things. That's who I am. And while as a meditator, that's true. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not those things. That's how we define ourselves. But I put myself in this box where it's like I had this idea of what I thought I was, and it was creating issues, I think, that I wasn't even aware of. Like, I think I was putting myself in a box because in some ways, sometimes I think we're all in a certain sense more than those things. Like you know, this is just, again, I'm just saying whatever. Some people might understand this, other people might not. But like, I think like you personally, whoever's listening to this, I think you're more than just your name. You know, I think you're more than what you've been given. I think we're all so much more than what we think we are. I think we're very powerful beings. Yeah, it's all about beingness. Like, and that's another one of those esoteric terms. But when you're being, you're in the moment. You're being. You are becoming the universe. Like, you're not just, you don't see. Like, I'm in my room right now. I'm looking at. I have a Fender electric guitar, a Telecaster that I have on the wall, and I'm looking at that, and it's like, you're not just. You don't look at those things as separate from you. You see everything as being connected with you, and it's a good change in perspective. Now, vocalizing that, putting words to that, and actually manifesting that, and just saying that, like right now, me saying those things, I don't think it's the full picture. I think meditation, especially transcendental meditation, is something that must be experienced. You've got to actually go in and experience it. Then you'll get what I'm talking about. Because if I tell you the words and the meaning behind it, the words can get interpreted a lot of different ways, and depending on the level of consciousness, I guess I'll use the word conscious. Like, each person listening to this right now is at their own level. Some people are 10 years further than me. Some people are, still learning and trying to become stronger spiritually, mentally, physically, everything like that. So wherever you're listening, you're bringing the level of awareness that you have to this, and you're going to interpret it in ways that you understand. What do I mean by that? It's like, it's kind of like when you're younger. So I went to Catholic schools, and I remember growing up, like reading the Bible, for example. As a kid, when you read the Bible, you literally believed it. It was like, yeah, those things are all actually happening. And then you get older and you realize, well, those are good symbolic stories. And then you get older and you just have a different perspective. Like, I'm just curious. I wish we could have a dialogue, a two-way dialogue, but I want to ask you something personally right now. Like, do you have any books that you have read like several times? And like, I don't know, imagine like a book that you read when you were younger. Like, for me, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People came to mind. Like, but you think of a book. So yeah, I'll use that example, but just think of a book for you that you've read several times over the years. And each time, because you're at a different level of consciousness, you understood the words a lot differently. You understood the book a lot differently. And yeah, whatever. Call me a self-help nerd or something, but the first book that came to my mind was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because I read that book when I was 17 years old, and then I read it almost every year since then for like 4 or 5 years, and then I would read it again and again, and each time you read it, it's like I remember there would be like a new sentence, and recently when I read it, like last year, I was still getting some things out of it. I was understanding it on a deeper level. So it's interesting doing that. I'm trying to think of some other great books like that. Another one of my favorite self-help books of all time. I don't even know if it's self-help or not, but it's The Art of War by Stephen. That's Sun Tzu. The War of Art. It's the opposite of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And it's just a really great book for anybody that's trying to do anything creative, or, I mean, basically, if you're trying to do anything. Sometimes in the self-help industry, you get a lot of fluff and a lot of positive stuff, but that book, I think you can read it in like 2 or 3 hours, 2 to 4 hours. The War of Art, and every time, I mean, it's just like a kick in the ass. You're like, wow, like Stephen Pressfield breaks down like every excuse that I've ever thought of and makes it so that yeah. And to give a brief like overview of it, it's basically like Stephen Pressfield creates this idea called resistance, and it's resistance that's in fundamentalism. He words it so much better, but basically resistance is this toxic form in this planet, and resistance is what's destroying. It's just causing people to not live their life, I guess. But you can research it, just Google it, and you'll see what I'm talking about. I mean, I highly recommend that book. But So getting back to transcendental meditation, I think it'll help you. It's one of those multimodal meta type activities, meaning it's like one little 20-minute activity you do in the morning and evening, but the payoff is I think it helps in fields that aren't even connected, meaning like it'll help me physically. Like I think if for me personally, when I start meditating, I sleep better. I'm able to handle pain a lot easier. And when I mean pain is like the kind of pain I subject myself to, like when working at, like I'm able to go into, I'm able to run a lot farther and, lift heavier weights and stuff like that. But then it helps you like relationally, like your relationships with other people. It helps spiritually. I think it helps financially too. I think it helps make people wealthy. If you look at all those people that are talking about transcendental, they're not like poor people. They're wealthy people. Even my TM instructor afterwards, he's like, some of the symptoms of proper TM is you start making more money. I think what happens is, for me, like my relationship with money started to kind of change, like the way I saw money. And it's not like... I talked about this a little bit in the last podcast. I didn't see money as like like an evil thing, I guess. And I think at this day and age, 2015, a lot of people are really conscious of that. Like this has been said for a while now, but you still see like unconsciousness, like people kind of denying it or maybe just complaining about it in a certain way and stuff like that. So that's just like the first conversation I think that we had on transcendental meditation. I can only assume, since this is one of the first topics I'm talking about, just a second. Since this is one of the first topics I'm talking about, and it's something that's really important to me, I can only assume that it's going to be a ongoing discussion and an ongoing thing. It's a lifetime it's like a lifetime practice, that's it's a very spiritual thing. Helps people spiritually. It helps people with their relationships. It helps people with money. Like I said, what else kind of does that? I can't think of too many things, and it's not like it's not a religion. You don't have to believe anything. I think the only belief that you have to have is the science. Like you believe it's working, or I think the only belief is your own experience. It's so experiential. You don't even have to believe in it. In fact, I think I've told that to people. It's not about belief, actually. You don't have to believe in transcendental meditation. Just try it and experience it. And then that's, there's nothing. Because when I think of religion, I think of beliefs. Like you have to say, like, I believe this. That's my belief. And what's, I think, a problem with that is almost any belief, you get into that identity creation thing where it's like, that's what I believe. That's who I am. That's how everything is. And the instant I think somebody starts doing that, they're frozen. They're stuck in whatever belief that is. So like if you have a book and at the time when you read that book, that was the most innovative thing. But maybe, I don't know, as you evolve and grow, that things change. But if you still believe whatever that book told you, you're kind of stuck. And, nature, if you look at evolution, nature's unkind to the animals that are stuck, like that can't change, that can't evolve. So even from an evolutionary, I don't even know if I'm saying that right. From an evolutionary perspective, TM is one of those things because by definition, it's like, well, not by definition, but just by practice, TM is by definition transcendental. That's exactly what it is. Transcendental. You're doing something transcendental. You're supposed to transcend whatever you were before. You transcend with it. So you're becoming more conscious. Yeah, you transcend. It's like those philosophers that say, transcend and include. Like when you go to the next level of anything, like you have to transcend and include. You include everything previous to it. So, Taekwondo maybe. I mean, maybe it'll work with martial arts. Like, you know, I used to do Taekwondo. You started out as a white belt and you learned your first form. And when you were done with your first form, you went on to the second form. You sort of like, in your first form is just like punch, kick, block, I think. I don't even think there's blocking. I think it's just, yeah, there's defending. There's a block and a punch, and that's it. Then your second form, you add like a new technique, like a block. And then your third form, you'll add in like kicking. And then fourth, maybe, I'm getting this a little bit messed up, but you can understand what I'm saying. Like you add like jump kicks or side kicks, or anyway, you go through, but you still have to remember all your previous techniques in order to do the more advanced technique. So by the time you get to the last one to get your black belt, you still have to transcend and include and do all the previous techniques. And even in order to do the very last form, like, you know, the last form, it demands like punching, kicking, jump kicks, and everything like that. So it all kind of transcends and includes. What that means by transcend is go into the next level, but you can't, anytime you go to the next level, you can't ignore the baseline, I guess, education that you got previously. I'm going to get a drink here. Just a second. Okay. I need to work on like breathing. This is like, I'm just going to breathe with everybody right now because this is like, it sounds bad, like the way I'm breathing into the mic. I don't know how these podcasters do it, you know, like just talking, maybe the way I'm talking, I need to develop that. When talking so informally, I think also like when I'm talking with other people, you get a chance to stop, but I've just been going on and on. And here we are 32 minutes into the podcast. And we just spent the majority of the time so far talking about Transcendental Meditation, which I can't stress enough. It's well worth it. And, you know, for years I wanted to learn Transcendental Meditation, but the cost always kind of prevented me from doing it. And most people, they're hardcore, like, they're all about the TM, you know, all about the TM, all about the TM. But you know what, man? What got me into TM was business school. I went to a Jesuit university, and they had us practice a form of mantra meditation for my organizational behavior class. And I'll be honest, I got a shitload out of that. A TMer is going to tell you that TM is the best form of meditation, but you know what I say? Do whatever you need to do. If you can't afford Transcendental Meditation, nothing is stopping you today from meditating. And if you look up on the internet, mantra meditation, that's free. You just do mantra meditation. And if you start getting benefits, which that's kind of my path, I just started doing mantra meditation and I was practicing a lot. And then I was like, man, I'm getting so much out of this. I want to do the real deal. I want to upgrade. And that's when I learned Transcendental Meditation, which I do believe is the best form of meditation. But like I said, there's a cost to it. And if you just want to get started today and you're motivated, just do mantra meditation. Maybe do like 5 minutes of it or whatever. Do whatever you can. Now, most people are going to disagree. Like there might be a lot of people disagreeing with me out there, but why wait? You know, why? There's just too much pain, you know? Me personally, you could ask so many people. There's people that have been through a lot worse than I have. To see their stories, to hear their stories, it's like, it's so worth it. You got to just get started, you know, now, get started today. Just go ahead and Google it if you want. But, when I was on a meditation retreat, I saw so many people, I say this quote a lot, but there's people out there, to me, they're heroes because there's like former drug addicts. When I say drugs, I mean the addicts I saw were like mostly alcoholics, former alcoholics. I saw a kid with what's that? Dang it, man! I'm gonna have to look this up. Autism. There was a kid with autism there practicing transcendental meditation. There was a man in one of my transcendental meditation retreats. He worked for the Library of Congress, and his wife of like, I think it was like 20 plus or maybe 30 years. It was some ridiculously large number of years. He was married to her, and she passed away like only like 6 months earlier. And he was using TM, and he was saying how much it changed his life. Just in like 6 months. It's just crazy. Man, you guys would think I'm like, I'm only, you think I'm just like this unathletic guy, how hard I'm breathing right now. It's like crazy. I'm also walking around while I'm talking to you. So, yeah. Yeah, this is crazy. I don't think I've ever had to breathe this hard for like, yeah. And I think it's not like, I think it's just because the way I'm talking into the mic and the way I think I'm just not breathing right. When I need to like research how to breathe and talk for really long periods of time, because it seems like I'm just like talking and yeah. So that's just weird. It's not weird. It's just like whatever. So those are all some of the great benefits of transcendental meditation. And what better way to transition this to talk about one of the more interesting subjects of conspiracies. Especially like the last 3 or 4 years around 2012, a lot of people were interested in the Mayan calendar, and the Mayan calendar's gone. So what are people like talking about? And there's these interesting shows, like Netflix has all these shows now where they're talking about, like, there's like America Declassified, where there's like all these classified documents and secrets by the America. There's like these Freemason documentaries talking about the Freemasons, and there's this like Illuminati kind of conspiracy stuff, and it's almost gotten to the point of like humor. Like my little sister, she's always like, she'll be watching, and she's just a young little girl. She's like watching TV shows and stuff, and she'll see like there'll be a necklace or something on a cartoon, and she'll point to the necklace and the symbol and be like, "That's Illuminati. They're part of the Illuminati." Or like she'll be at the grocery store and she'll point to a lady who's got an earring. It's like maybe it's shaped like a pyramid or something. She's like, "That's Illuminati. They're part of the Illuminati." That's kind of how I think a lot of people are thinking. Don't get me wrong. I think there is something to be said. Like, we can't ignore the fact that there are forces, global forces right now. We're living in a time where there are people that are so wealthy and they're so powerful, and they do have a extremely high amount of influence and stuff like that. And then it gets like, are they? But then the other question is, are all these people conspiring? And using that term conspire, like, I mean, this is kind of conspiracy even right now. If you want to say it like, if there's a listener, that listener is conspiring with the person talking. So in that sense, there's, all kinds of conspiracies. But what I mean is like, like there's 13 families or whatever that are in control, and they're like the puppet masters of all the people. And every time I hear that, I always think about one of my favorite books, Dune, because Frank Herbert, the author of Dune, the idea behind Dune was basically that, like, if left unchecked, people will just somehow make other people the Messiah. You know what I mean? Like, people will just hand the keys. If you have keys to a Ferrari and you don't want to have power and you don't want to be in control of your life, you'll just hand off your metaphorical keys to the Ferrari and give it to someone else and let the other person be the Messiah. You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of what that book was about. Like how people would be willing to just give up their own power and give it to someone else. And I think there's a little bit of that going on with a lot of this conspiracy stuff. But, all that being said, like I've said all this truth, and I think those are a lot of the truths. This is entertaining. First off, I love reading conspiracy theories because it's entertaining. And then there has to be some partial truths in everything. We can't just write off certain things. We can't say, well, they're just idiots, they're just wrong. We have to include, in my opinion, there needs to be a space for dialogue, even on some of these strange occurring things, because the universe does have strange, novel, unique things going on. And it's just, yeah, I mean, it's entertaining, but it's also, there has to be some truth to it. Like, like aliens, for example. Like, do aliens exist? Well, in a certain sense, they do, because like they said, like they've discovered some water on Mars or whatever. If you, that's an alien. If there's little bacteria, like little tiny living organisms, I mean, those are aliens on Mars. You know what I mean? We haven't found any like conscious beings in the universe in our out in the multiverse. Yeah, they call it the multiverse now, I guess, because it's not just one universe. There could be like billions or some infinite number of multiple universes happening simultaneously. But anyway, so like we haven't found like beings that can communicate the way humans can communicate. They can't communicate on our level, but that doesn't mean they're not there. And the more and more you read about like the Hubble telescope showing how like we're just like this tiny dot, like just like in this, and then it's just like, it almost seems like statistically there has to be something out there, but that just reminds me of, I saw the movie Interstellar like over the winter. And man, that's just a cool movie. Like if you like Christopher Nolan films, the guy that did like Memento, the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, if you liked those movies, I think that Interstellar is worth it, like to watch. Like it's basically Inception in outer space. I'll just say it. Like it's like Gravity. Like people are going to give me shit because they're saying, oh, Inception's not like Gravity and Gravity's not like Inception. I saw these comments on YouTube about this comparison with like Inception and Gravity. I mean, you can't even compare Gravity with Inception. Those aren't even in the same like league to compare them, is what like the hipsters were saying. But they're both space movies. They're both in outer space. How can you not? What else the hell? What other movies in the last couple of years, whatever mainstream hardcore movies that have come out in the last few years, can you compare it to? Oh, 2001, A Space Odyssey. But dude, I mean, that's just like so far back. No, I mean, Gravity really is one of the only comparisons in the mainstream that you have. I mean, maybe they know something because they are a hipster and they knew it before everyone else did. But at the end, dude, so what? You're just trolling on the internet. Anyway, in my opinion, if you were to mate Gravity with Inception, the resulting baby would be Interstellar. I mean, just on a general level for people to understand, okay? We're not like this isn't graduate comparative literature here. This is just freaking to give you an idea of the kind of movie. Like, if you go into it and you watch Interstellar, like, in IMAX, it's going to be like a ride. You know what I mean? To me, it was like a ride. Like, oh man, there's all this outer space stuff and the decisions they have to make and the mind, the way people can communicate with each other. So, yeah, it was really good. Been drinking a lot of water lately. I've been trying to As you know, in the last podcast, I had a horrible stomach ache. It was like excruciating pain. Which is rare. I hadn't been sick in, I think the last time I got sick was like 8 or 9 months prior. I don't really get too sick too often. But, yeah. Tintinnabulation, just as a reminder, tintinnabulation is the ringing or sounding of bell. At the end of the Sopranos series, wasn't there a tintinnabulation? Did Tony Soprano get whacked at the end of The Sopranos? Because I always remember that series ending. They said that when you get shot or when you get killed, I think, I'm paraphrasing it, but there's a tintinnabulation. There's a ringing or sounding of a bell. Is that true? I don't know. Okay, so that's like part 1 of our Transcendental Meditation and conspiracy theories. I have a feeling, just because I'm interested in like reading and learning about far out there ideas, I have a feeling that might be, we'll see, a regular conversation, a regular dialogue that I'll be having as this podcast develops and organizes as it naturally should, if we're going under this evolutionary assumptions. Excuse me, that was horrible. So let's move on. Clash of Clans. If you're not into Clash of Clans, or if you don't understand, like, imagine that I'm working on my house, okay? Imagine that, like, what I'm telling you is, like, we're neighbors and we're friends, and, you know, your friend he has a garden, and he's working on this garden, and, you know, you're interested, because you're thinking of maybe you're starting a garden, or maybe you're thinking of getting a new car or something. That's just kind of how I want you to think about this Clash of Clans update, because it's a long-term time grind, and I just wanted to give an update on my walls, because I'm at this stage in Clash of Clans where the walls are getting really expensive, and it's going to take me like 2 months to build my walls. So imagine what I'm telling you is like, this is like a repair in the house. Like, this is like a house project, and that's what the equivalent of this is. So, to give an update on my skull wall project, I now have 99 walls left. I only have to repair 99 more walls, and it takes me, I think I build about 2 walls a day, so I've got only 99 left. And my level 8 skull walls, that means I have 151 skull walls. So I got 151 skull walls and 99 more dark purple walls to go. So that's how that project's going. Hopefully in about a month, that project will be done. And then I can start working on the Lego walls. So that's where I'm at with Clash of Clans. I have level 7 giants, max everything. I might, if this ever does get syndicated in a podcast, I might have to have pictures of my village so people can just admire it, if they admire it. I don't know. Such a small percentage of people Clash. I'm discovering people my age, people who would be listening to this. I have a feeling that the people listening to this are probably not Clashers. They're probably professional. In my mind, the typical podcaster listening to this is a working professional and a highly intelligent human being who is funny and likes to laugh at things, and probably just, like, you know, has a day job and listens to this maybe at work, maybe while driving, maybe while working out, maybe while playing Clash of Clans, maybe just during any of those times. But I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you're not an idiot. I don't know why. I'm assuming that you're a smart person. That's probably, because they say in like marketing, you need to have they call it an avatar. You need to have an avatar of your target person. I'm just assuming that you're a smart human being. Maybe you're smarter than me. Maybe it's because I think that I'm a smart person. Maybe it's because I think I'm a dumb person. I don't know. But I'm assuming that you're a working professional. If not a working person, I'm just assuming you're just a good person. And maybe when I do that, and maybe the way I talk, maybe the things that I know, things that I do, maybe that can attract the right audience. Because I'm just assuming that like the podcasting audience in general are smart people. I don't know why, but that's just what I'm assuming. I could be wrong. There could be a lot of idiots. I know there's a lot of idiots out there, dude. Maybe even there's idiots listening to this podcast. But I guess my point is, I'd rather assume the best, that there's good people out there, and there's good people out there. I'd rather assume that there's good people out there. Oh man, we still got like 3 or 4 other topics. Let's see how we're doing on time. Holy crap, we've gone 51 minutes, son. 51 minutes. And I don't know if I should just wrap it up or not. I mean, I had these other great little ideas. I can't really talk too much about these. Okay, so podcasting drunk. That's what I talked about in the beginning. The reason I was doing that is because I'm a huge Joe Rogan Experience fan. Like, I listen to Joe Rogan like crazy. And he had the CEO of Vice, Smith was his last name, I think. Smith. Let me look it up on the internet. JoeRogan.net. It's like totallyhooked.net. That's what I'm. If you're listening to this, then I've probably already purchased the website totallyhooked.net, and I'm probably releasing this from totallyhooked.net, but we'll see. Okay, Shane Smith. So Shane Smith, that was a great podcast. It was one of my favorite. I'm talking about podcast number 599 with Shane Smith, and he started out so intelligent. Like, the words were perfect. Very eloquent guy. You can tell he's a smart guy. He's really intelligent. He knows a lot about international politics. And, if I read the comments, I can already imagine, if the Joe Rogan fans are listening, they're like, no, this guy's an idiot. They didn't like him. He got a lot of hate, but I think he was a pretty smart guy. But dude, he was drinking like crazy. He was laying down. It looked like vodka. I mean, he was drinking. It looked like he drank a whole bottle like in an hour. And towards the end, like the last 45 minutes or so, I mean, he was just like, his words were slurred, and I don't think people understood. Even like Joe Rogan was saying, yeah, drunk. He's like, I'm drunk. But if you were just listening, like I was just listening to it, you wouldn't have noticed how I didn't even know he was drinking until he started just saying some really crazy stuff with like words slurred and like, oh yeah. And then the cocksucking, as they called it, they just started saying like, I love you, man. Like, he was just really sucking up to Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan, he's giving it back to him. Joe's a good guy, from what I've heard, just from listening to his podcast. I don't know him personally. I'd like to know him personally. He seems pretty cool. But yeah, like, they had a really interesting dialogue, and it just got drunken. I was like, I liked it. I thought it was cool. I think, it added a lot of realism. You had to see it for what it was, though. He got a lot of negative comments, I think, because people, I don't know. It's like, if you're not drunk, you're not going to be with, it's like if you and your buddies were to go out and you were the guy not drinking. They're all going to be having fun, but you're just going to be sitting there like, yeah, why don't you talk about like important stuff? Like with Russia, he doesn't know what he's talking about with Russia. Or, that was very offensive. Like, dude, they're just having a good time. They're just sitting there drinking, having a good time. You're missing the point of that podcast, I think, which was, I think number one is just to have fun. Like, it's just like, obviously it was just two friends, they seem pretty close. They seem to know each other's families. Two friends that are just pretty close, having a good time. And if you try to interpret it as anything more than that, I mean, you're just thinking way too much about it. So that's my thoughts on drunken podcasting. Maybe I'll do it someday. You never know. Okay. Jane Fonda. First off, I'm a soldier. I served in soldier. I'm an airman. I was a former airman. I served for 6 years in the Air Force. Although I was in the Donald Rumsfeld years was when I served. So I served during the blank paycheck years when from 2001, like right before 9/11 until about mid 2007. So that's just to give you perspective of, my experience serving in the Air Force. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, Jane Fonda was giving a talk in Maryland, and about 50 veterans showed up, and they were criticizing a 77-year-old woman on her protesting in Vietnam. Now, this is way before my time, so I couldn't understand. There's people older than me, and I have a lot of respect for older people, and maybe I didn't live through the eras that you lived in, sir. And when I say sir, I mean, Johnny Gray Hair, who served in Vietnam, who was probably spit on by, and probably hated on by everyone, because when Johnny Soldier from the Vietnam era was in the military, everybody hated him. They shitted on him. They burned their officers' quarters down, and that's something that I didn't experience. It was different for me in 2001, right after 9/11. Everyone was praising the soldier. So that's coming, just to give you an idea of the context this is coming from. This is coming from a person who just doesn't understand it, but at the same time, Jane Fonda is a 77-year-old woman. That happened a long time ago. It's that was so long ago. It's talking about transcending including, we need to transcend, it's just an old lady giving a talk. I don't know what she's going to talk about, but, Vietnam's over, but we can't forget it. Yeah. I mean, even as a soldier, I had this idea of how I was going to present this, but we can't, I can see sort of both sides, I guess. I mean, I really wanted to be critical because it's, that's just been a long time, but it just depends on where you're at. And those guys lived through that. So they still, it's just, I heard in the South so much hate on Jane Fonda. It's they're still hating on her. She's this old lady now. One thing I didn't include, one key piece of information is she said it was a mistake. In that interview today, she was taking that picture. I guess she took a picture back in the Vietnam era as a protester. She said that was a mistake. Yeah, it probably was. It probably ruined her career. It's nobody, if you don't, if you hate on the soldiers, it's just a bad thing for your career. But, I want to just say, just as a side, I love the soldiers, by the way. Everybody, this is it sounds so after I just talked all this, but no, I have friends that are Marines, and, I have family members who are Marines, and I was in the Air Force, and I think when I was in the Air Force, I didn't have as much reverence especially for the Marine Corps, but, where I work in DC now, I've seen several guys coming back from Afghanistan and Iraq, and they've got some shit, they've had some shit happen, I've seen one guy without his leg, I've seen another guy without his hand, and those guys, that's going to stay with them for the rest of their lives. I mean, I put in my time, but I didn't sacrifice the way that they sacrificed. So got a lot of respect for anyone who's truly given the sacrifice for protecting our freedom. Okay. It looks like we're going to be seeing a New England Patriots and Seattle Seahawks Super Bowl. Arguably a very boring Super Bowl. I was by the time we got to the playoffs, I was kind of hoping to see maybe Green Bay Packers and Colts Super Bowl. Why? I know there's going to be a lot of haters, but why? Because it's different, I don't know. It's just those two teams are just so powerful. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. But at the same time, you can't hate on, I used to hate on Tom Brady, but he's had a great season this year. The Patriots have had a great season, and you can't really argue that. I'm not going to argue it. I'd like to, I've said not the kindest words about Tom Brady, but they're going to the Super Bowl. That's really cool. Good for them. Good for them. Good for you guys. Good for the Seahawks. Good for the Patriots. I'll tell you what, it's going to be a good Super Bowl. I'm actually looking forward to it, even though there's other teams I would have liked to have seen. I thought the Arizona Cardinals had a great year. They had a wonderful, wonderful year, and maybe next year they'll make it further in the playoffs. And yeah, so that's that. Okay, here we are at exactly 1 hour. I think today we had a pretty good podcast. Let's just go over. I'm just going to talk about some of the things. So today we just talked about Transcendental Meditation, conspiracy theories, and Clash of Clans, podcasting drunk, Dame Jane Fonda, and a little bit of sports updates. So all in all, it's a good little podcast. I hope everybody has a great week. Hope everybody has a great day. I wish you massive amounts of success, and I hope that you keep listening. Make sure to keep listening, and if I have the website up, I think the website I'm going to choose is totallyhooked.net. Make sure and come back to totallyhooked.net. Get your listen to this podcast, share it with the world, and have a great day. Okay, bye.